Hi, Ms. Snowden. Hi, class. So today our lesson is basically a crash course on trans and non-binary identities. You can see this here. That's my name. Okay, so first we're going to do a class discussion. It's basically a poll of the room and just see what you guys know about being trans or the word non-binary. I want to iterate that this is a challenge by choice kind of thing. You don't have to share your story or your experiences if you don't want to, but it is encouraged because this is a safe place and like what goes on here will not be repeated elsewhere. So does anyone want to? Al?
Okay. So I know transgender is, I would say, an umbrella term when it comes to that.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely transitioning from either male to female, female to male, or non-binary.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have different terms like, let's see, bigender and all that jazz,
Mhm.
where it's under a spectrum.
Yeah, definitely.
It's kind of like sexuality, if I am correct.
Yeah, spectrum's definitely both of them. Does anyone else want to share something?
You could say I know about being transgender.
A little bit? Your little
Like
experience?
a little bit. Like
Is it dabble?
Yeah. I've dabbled. I've experimented.
You dabbled in being trans.
I've experienced a free demo.
I got a free
The
trial
Snapchat
once.
filter.
Oh my goodness.
Being transgender means a bit to me.
Mhm.
It's a really large part of my identity, mainly just because it was made like a large part of my identity.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't like it to play as big of a part in my life as it does. I'd rather just be like, yeah, I'm trans, and what about it?
Mhm.
But apparently life doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
You could say I have personal experience.
Thank you for sharing that. Does anyone else want to say anything more, or are we good on the class discussion? Okay. So, first we're going to cover transgender. Like Al said,
I was correct.
Like Al said, it is an umbrella term. So basically, transgender itself is an umbrella term, and underneath it is two more umbrella terms, binary and non-binary, and that's what we're going to talk about first. So, another term to know when we're talking about transgender is the opposite, which is cisgender, and that's when your sex and gender kind of traditionally align, though that itself can get more complicated as due to there aren't biologically only two sexes, but that's what we think of, and so cis and trans. Yeah. Okay, so first we're going to talk about the gender binary and then the gender spectrum. So the gender binary is basically what is considered as a norm within the society. So in our Western society, it is men and women, and so we love. And then the gender spectrum is kind of like the bigger multitude of all genders, and so it kind of has men on one side, women on the other, and then it has everything in the middle. So that is how these two terms differ. Okay, so it does not look as pretty as it does on my laptop. This is the trans flag.
Oh, really pretty.
Yeah, okay, it has a lot of flags involved, and this is a very pretty PowerPoint, but we hate to see it. So
we hate to see it.
binary trans are trans individuals that fall within the gender binary. This would be your male to female transgender individual, and male, did I say male to female? Which one did I say? Female to male and male to female. But those are kind of also in themselves outdated terms, and they're kind of seen as very like cold medical terms. And so the way we would address this, if you were not being kind of rude, is a trans man and a trans woman. Alongside this is non-binary trans individuals, and so these exist outside of a gender binary, but not the gender spectrum. This is an umbrella term as well, which we will cover more in just the littlest bit. Okay, so commonly known non-binary identities. So some common ones are agender, gender fluid, bigender, and genderqueer. Does anyone want to kind of throw out what they know about these, or you want me to read the definitions and
I'm a pop-up.
Okay, Dean and then Al.
Alright, so I'm gonna read some definitions, y'all.
Oh, you want to read them?
I want to read them.
Thank God.
Okay, so if a person identifies as agender, that just means that they don't identify with a gender at all. And if they identify as gender fluid, they can exist anywhere on the spectrum of gender, and since it is fluid, that means it changes depending on the day, the hour, the minute, the second, if you will. And then bigender, it's kind of odd in terms of it being a non-binary identity, especially because it flips between mainly the two binary genders. So you're either on one side of it or the other, but never in the middle. And then gender queer is an umbrella term that has more of an ambiguous connotation. It's like gender fluid in the aspect of being a non-binary identity, but genderqueer in itself is more androgynous, if anything, whereas gender fluid, it's, like I said, fluctuating.
Yeah. And I would definitely say that people who identify as genderqueer, it can mean different things to different individuals, so it's not the same. It's like the word queer itself, people who identify as queer have different experience from person to person.
Word.
And then Al, you wanted to speak?
Yeah, as someone who definitely doesn't fit into the gender binary, genderqueer to me, I guess if like I had to pick something, it's definitely, I would say, like an umbrella term for someone else to like identify myself as. But for me as an individual, like I definitely feel like I'm my own human being.
Yeah,
I'm my own person. And I don't fit in with female and I don't fit in with male.
Yeah.
Even though I do like aspects of both. But for genderqueer, it's just existing.
Yeah.
And breaking that binary, breaking the stereotypes and everything that goes in with like non-binary. Because when you think about non-binary people, you're like, oh, so they're kind of like asexuals. Or like, oh, they're snowflakes.
Yeah.
And like, oh, they're boring.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not boring.
Oh my God.
I can guarantee you that.
Yeah.
But I definitely like, I lost my train of thought. Hold on.
You're fine. You're fine. Take your time.
No, I definitely like I respect having like these terms now.
Yeah.
You know, because like I couldn't really label it when I was growing up.
Yeah.
So having these terms, I mean, like I'm just Al, and I'm just me.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. Definitely a common like we discussed, a common misconception of non-binary identities is people who, like, especially cis people, kind of assume that being non-binary is being a gender. They think every non-binary individual just doesn't have a gender in general. I totally get what you're saying about it being, seen kind of as convoluted or special or snowflakey or stuff like that. Also, just because you can't see these very well, I will tell you that these are the flags. Yeah. This one, genderqueer, I have to look at the actual colors. Genderqueer, bigender, agender, gender fluid. The bigender flag, personally, as a biased bigender individual, is the prettiest one up there.
Debatable. Okay.
It's so pretty. Do you see it? It's beautiful.
I see it very well.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love the green and the gray and the black.
Listen, Miss Snowden, you cannot see it, but I will describe it to you. It is a dark pink, a light pink, a lavender, a white, a lavender, a light blue, and a dark blue, and it is beautiful.
Okay, lavender is a nice color.
Thank
Lavender
you.
slaps.
Lavender does slap.
And it's like less aggressive than. Okay, the genderqueer flag is also because I like the muted tones, but like the
It does kind
gender fluid flag is very aggressive to me.
Not gonna gender. Okay.
Like it's like very vibrant colors, and I'm like,
Yeah, no.
go off.
Not coming out the genderqueer flag or anything, but like it looks.
It's not-
It looks boring. As an art major, it looks boring. I'm sorry.
Okay, we're gonna move on. Okay, so now we're gonna kind of talk about some concepts that go along with being transgender, being binary trans or non-binary trans. So the first one we're going to talk about is gender dysphoria. So it is defined as the conflict between a person's physical or assigned gender and the gender with which they, she, or he identify. I don't know why they just said they. Like they included it, but they had to do all the slashes as well.
He slash she slash they.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the thing about gender dysphoria is there's kind of a big debate within the cis community and also within the trans community. It's a whole big convoluted fight. but basically not every trans person experiences gender dysphoria, and it's
What?
not something that you, what?
Are you serious?
Yeah, not every trans person experiences gender dysphoria.
Dog, sign me up.
Can I please be that kind of trans person?
Don't sign me up.
Yeah.
What's the coupon code?
Is there a good RX?
Okay, so not every
You want
trans
my
person experiences gender dysphoria, and it's definitely not something that you need in order to identify as or exist as a trans individual. Okay, and now we're going to talk about gender euphoria. So this is defined as the feeling of comfort, certainty, joy, or excitement about your body or your identity. And so basically it's not a good idea to think of it as the opposite of gender dysphoria, because it can exist at the same time and work alongside gender dysphoria. This is talked about far less often. Cis people don't even know what this is. Okay? You know the meme? Do you know the meme where it's like talking to trans people about gender and it's like the philosophers, and then talking to cis people about gender and it's like the baby blocks?
Correct.
Yeah, so
I see no lines.
gender euphoria is more of a, I will get to you, Dean, I promise. Gender euphoria is more of a universal experience for trans people, whereas gender dysphoria is not. Almost every trans person experiences, I almost said trans euphoria. Gender dysphoria, because it's basically the it's basically the feeling like when you are recognized as the gender that you are, and it's that feeling of like certainty and joy and like being safe. So like when someone calls me sir, or like calls me by Nathan instead of Arianna when I'm having my guy days, I experience such a high of gender euphoria, and it's something that all trans people kind of experience. It's more universal than gender dysphoria. D, then Al.
Yeah, Mr. Gilson.
Of course he goes first.
So, I have a comment.
Yes.
So, yes, this is talked about far less often.
Mhm.
So much that I didn't even know what gender euphoria was until I came to college.
Really?
Until this semester of college.
This is my first time hearing about it.
Really?
Literally right now, yeah.
Does it make sense to you though? Like, does
No,
it?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like Pinocchio. I'm a real boy, you know?
Hey, Pinocchio! Okay, do you continue your thought?
Yeah,
Thank you.
no, it's wild. It really is.
Yeah, it's just not talked about.
Because like I know exactly the feeling that's trying to emulate, and like I can guarantee you that I felt it 100 times, and I never even knew that there was a word to describe its existence.
Can I ask you a question?
What's up?
Is it like kind of validating to have the vocabulary to describe what you're feeling now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be like,
There's a word for that.
gender euphoria.
That's I feel like that's a very trans experience to find words and vocabulary.
Oh,
Like
yes.
once you find the vocabulary to explain what you're like experiencing, it's mind blowing. Once I found the word bigender,
Absolutely.
once I found the word non-binary, I was just like, I'm not a broken, sad person who has to cry all the time.
See,
Because
like,
here's the
yeah.
thing. Because here's the thing is that like a lot of people who are not trans, who are cis, tend to think that we're just making this up as
up
we
on the
go,
fly, like
and that we're just doing it to spite people. And
Yeah.
whatnot. But the thing is that these genders do exist.
yeah.
And the only reason why they didn't exist sooner was because we didn't have a word to put to it.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
vocabulary.
Yeah, exactly. It's so like these things have always existed, and it was just a matter of having a word to describe it.
Yeah.
And I think that's why like a lot of trans kids don't even come out until later in life, because they don't have access to this vocabulary, these words.
Definitely.
Yeah, no, but like definitely thinking back now of what you said, like I knew what it meant, and like it's definitely like the best way I can describe it is any part of like I would say like the LGBT community of like when you start to finally realize like, oh my god, yeah, that makes a lot more sense. You're on like it's such a rush of like that makes sense. I know who I am, but
Yeah.
you're terrified.
Yeah.
You're 100% terrified. And like being on like like the what's it called?
The non-binary spectrum.
Yeah, like the non-binary spectrum, it's always a constant like uphill. It's always a constant uphill of like a battle of like, am I like I feel like I'm making it up because other people keep on telling me, you know, and it's not socially acceptable, you know, and being trans isn't socially acceptable throughout many parts of the world.
Yeah.
And it sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks. So having like a word to describe like gender euphoria, like I know what it meant. Like I knew what it meant to me, and I knew what it meant in general, but I didn't even know about this word until like just now.
I feel like I'm definitely doing my job now. I feel like an educator.
We learned something.
You did learn something.
Emily, we learned.
Okay. So I just wanted to touch on this because I feel like it is such an important part.
Woo.
Yeah, I feel like it's very like linked to the trans experience. Okay, so gender nonconforming. So being gender nonconforming is basically presenting in a way that doesn't align with your society's expectations of your gender. So GNC, that's what I'm gonna be calling it. GNC is not a trans identity, but it is not like exclusive to only cis people or only trans people. So trans people can be gender nonconforming. For example, earlier we were discussing in Dean's lesson plan, we were discussing how there can be trans men who are feminine, there can be trans women who are masculine, and they are gender non-conforming, but at the same time trans, just as, you know, cis people can be, like, there's tomboys, and then there's, like, flamboyant men. And so this isn't exactly part of the trans experience or trans identities, but it is so, like, understood and so discussed within the trans community because it's kind of linked, like, you know.
Because everybody's are uniquely individual.
Yeah, everybody's an individual.
Yeah. So like talking about this stuff, like definitely like brings a voice to it. Like we have people who are tomboys and flamboyant guys and stuff, and like seeing I guess cis people seeing that and then seeing us, they can get a better understanding of it. And even people in like the like trans community or LGBT community, because we still do have biases in there.
Definitely.
There's some people who like are like, well, you know, there's only two genders, and you can only switch between
both.
who can only switch between those two. And there are people who, you know, are like oh, those are snowflakes in our community, you know, and it's just a matter of discussing it and having talks like this for gender nonconforming.
Yeah. We love. Okay, so it got real dark. How do you know if you are trans or gender nonconforming?
Perfect topic for getting dark.
Do you
Experimentation.
Do you feel the vibe? Are you feeling the vibe?
You know the vibes.
You know the vibes.
Okay, so basically experimentation, as it says, it's so healthy and natural to explore your gender identity. It's healthy and normal! Exclamation point. So basically, it's very, I feel like everybody questions their gender or explores with it a little bit, and it doesn't go, like it kind of flies under the radar in the in the cis community. Like cis people will question it or explore it a little bit, but they don't really discuss it openly, and I feel like it should be discussed so much more because it is so healthy and natural and part of the human experience. It is also something that will help trans people in the long run, because if it becomes more mainstream for cis people to explore and question their gender, then it will be more socially acceptable for trans people to transition, and then there will be more allocation of resources for trans individuals. I also added this because part of exploring your gender identity is nobody really finds the perfect fit the first time. And if you do, that's kind of more rare than a common occurrence. So exploring a variety of multiple labels or identities until you find the one that works for you is okay. And if you identify strongly with one at one point in your life and then decide that doesn't exactly define your experiences or who you are anymore, it's okay to like switch it up. Like you're who you are in that moment, and it's okay for you to find vocabulary that better fits that.
Yeah, it's definitely terrifying, honestly. Like me coming out as like a queer individual, like that was a lot easier than coming out. Like I still haven't come out because I still have to figure myself out. Yeah. Because the fact of the matter is, if I came out as like genderqueer, and then later in life I was like, no, I'm a man, my dad would slaughter me.
Yeah.
He'd been like,
yeah.
So you're just making up genders now? dog, what's going on?
I get that.
You know, it's hard. I would say, like, it's more socially acceptable to be like, hey, I'm gay, and then be like, no, I'm bi, than instead of being like, yes, I'm trans, and then being like, no, I'm actually genderqueer. You know?
Yeah, definitely.
And that's definitely something we need to like talk about more, because like if we can accept someone no matter what for being gay, and then being like, no, I've discovered myself more and I'm actually bisexual, or I'm actually pansexual, or I'm actually straight, like it's something we should keep to the same standards as gender.
Sexuality.
Like having like
No, but you
boobs,
said
what?
it backwards though.
Oh, it's interesting. Yeah.
But yeah, I get what you're saying completely, and
Like I came on a bus at like 5 in the morning here. I'm tired.
I love you.
I'm zooming.
To validate your experience as a student, I will give you my experience as a teacher in order to assure you that things are fine.
Aw, thanks.
I am a teacher and an adult, and
How old are you?
I 34. I'm 19. Shit, we're pretending I'm an adult teacher. But I still have to come out to all of my family about my trans identity. Like I recently was forced out of the closet with my father about it. He didn't take it very well. But yeah, that's definitely I get what you're saying. Like it's harder with gender stuff. It really is.
Yeah, especially when like your family's like, yeah, I accept you for being gay, but like if you're trans, I don't think I could accept you.
One trans.
If you're a trans.
You're a
If you're a trans.
You're a transgender.
Okay.
A trans.
Moonlighting.
if you will.
In conclusion, gender identity is very complex and deeply personal, and it should be explored. Like, dig around in there.
Flashlight on your helmet.
I found it. It's a transgender.
Oh my god. Knowing more about trans identities and like just knowing more in general.
Thing.
It's Miss Nolan, my PowerPoint is beautiful. This is yellow and awful. Anyway,
You should send it to her.
maybe I will. I'll send her like a recording me going through it really fast. But knowing more about trans identities benefits everyone involved. It benefits cis people because now they're more educated and more equipped to kind of interact healthfully and positively with trans people. And it helps trans people because then they don't have to deal with ignorance on a daily basis, and they don't have to be constantly the educator. And this is basically the whole point of this crash course. It's just a foundation for you to build upon. Like this isn't everything. I don't think I could fit everything into a PowerPoint. Nevertheless, a 13-slide PowerPoint. But it's just a foundation for you to grow upon and be a better ally. Okay, this is a time for any questions that you had saved for the presentation. I fell over.
We're all good.
So any questions that you've saved or any comments or anything, Dean?
What does your shirt say?
My shirt says Grandma's never run out of kisses or candy. It is a Halloween sweater.
For a second, I thought it said Grandma's never run outside, and I was really
I thought so.
confused.
Were you saving that for the whole presentation?
Yes.
See.
Ow.
So, never mind. I lost it.
You lost your question?
I lost my question.
Well, I
Wait,
am constantly a resource for you if you remember it.
Okay, wait. Okay, so like, how did you come to like terms with like accepting yourself?
My personal experience with
Yeah.
being non-binary, like bigender.
Yeah. Like, how did you find that between like bigender and like genderqueer? You know, because like I've looked at like both of them, or like
Yeah.
like a couple of them, or and even like non-binary, and I'm like, I don't know.
Well, okay, so my personal experience, it just kind of like was exploring. It was exploring different vocabulary and finding what I felt fit my experience. Because for me, I'm either a man or a woman. I'm never in between. I'm never neither. I'm never both. It's just a man or a woman. And because my gender is such like, you're one or the either. Like, yeah, like that one. You're one or the other. But
Boston.
your Nana's so possessed.
When you're
First of all, my Nana is not from Boston. She's
No,
from
she's
New
not.
York.
I know, but it's similar. It's fine.
Why you keep on making fun of her like that, dog?
Oh my goodness. But yeah, so just for my personal experience, just like I have always experienced a lot of gender dysphoria.
I feel.
Yeah, so gender dysphoria was something I've always struggled with. Even as a child, I had guy days, and I had days where I was like, I'm a boy today, these are my boy sandals, and I don't have a shirt on. Or like at school, I wore a hat to school, like a baseball hat, but my hair in it, and I was trying to convince my kindergarten class that I was a new student, and that I was a boy.
I feel that.
I was just like, I'm new, I'm a boy.
Yeah.
So just like just kind of like keying my experience, like taking them and making them fit into a label and just exploring.
Yeah, like I remember like.
And so like I've always with my sexuality, I did a lot more questioning. I went from, we're not gonna go through all the sexualities I went through, but like by gender, that was it. I was like, oh, because like everybody thinks there's sex.
Like, I'm like
But
the
then I was
opposite. Like literally.
by gender, that's it.
Literally, I found out what being like gay was, and I was like, yeah, that's me.
Really?
Yeah.
You want to hear all the things I went through for my sexuality?
I think I only went through bisexual, lesbian, and I'm like queer. Yeah.
I thought I was straight, and then I thought I was asexual, and then I thought I was gay, and then I thought I was straight again, and then I thought I was bisexual, and then I thought I was what is it? I thought I was panromantic homosexual.
That's so.
And then I realized I was pansexual.
Yeah.
So it went like, here we are. And it was by gender, I was like, by gender?
No, literally,
That's
like,
it.
6th grade rolled around, and I was like, girls are it. Yep. Yep. I
You're
did that.
a
What is it with 6th
woman.
grade? What is with 6th grade?
It really is a
6th grade summer
thing.
for me, I was just like, I want to kiss my best friend on this hill. I am the gay.
It really is a 6th grade thing.
Yeah.
Like, wow, so like girls.
Snowden's
huh?
getting our personal experiences. Yeah.
Yeah. No, like mine was like
Love you, Miss
Sam.
Snowden.
Mine was like Sam from iCarly, and I was like,
Oh,
we're just like, what?
Sam from iCarly.
Yeah.
Sam from iCarly.
Sam from iCarly.
What the heck?
Yeah, and then I was like, okay.
She
like,
was gay.
I was
I'm
like-
not even. She was in
She
love
was
with
gay.
Yeah, she was
Carly.
gay. No, but like.
Not to stereotype or anything.
No. I love your voice crack. But like, and then I was like, wow, I kind of want to like, that's my best friend. What? Wow. And then I didn't think about it until like 8th grade. I was like, yep,
That's
all
fine.
great.
You're valid.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Your human experience is.
But I didn't start
acceptable.
questioning my like gender until like I would say earlier this year. Like
Wow.
Dean's been through it.
Everybody's on a different timeline. I didn't embrace my trans identity until I came to college and met Dean and Dea. I was just like, I'm non-binary. I was friends with an exclusionist. My best friend for 7 years was an exclusionist and a trans med. And
A trans man.
What is
yeah,
it?
that a trans. Okay, so it means trans medical. Basically, they believe that you have to have gender dysphoria to be trans.
Yeah.
And they also often don't believe that non-binary people are trans, even if they do experience gender dysphoria.
And that like people have to like go on hormones or have surgeries. to
Yeah,
be
and
trans.
he didn't really believe that. He was very uncomfortable with the idea of trans being an umbrella term. He was like, you're non-binary, you're not trans. But I got to college, and then Dean and Dea were like, oh, you're non-binary, you're by gender?
We went and
You
I
are
go,
trans!
as a trans.
So yeah, I definitely embraced that. So everybody's on a different timeline. Like,
Yeah. No, it was just like, I don't know, like my sexuality, I was like, yeah, like that's what it is. And like, I don't think I ever.
Some things are more complicated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I never really bashed myself like with my sexuality until I met my ex-girlfriend.
no, I was so accepting of my sexuality immediately. I never went through like this self-hatred phase. Like I was just like, oh, we're like girls, and then I was writing very positive gay poetry. I was like, this is who I am. Nothing can change me, and the world should accept it. Like immediately, there was no hatred.
No, like my sexuality, I was like, yeah, I'm good. Like, I'm
Yeah.
good. And then like my gender, I was like, nope, that's not me. No, I can't be that. That's
That's on
incorrect.
camera.
I'm disabled. She has to accept it.
No,
I'm having a cane day, Miss
But
Emily.
slowly-
Excuse me if I struggle.
no, but like slowly coming to terms with that, like, is like,
Yeah,
it's
that's good.
reassuring. It's definitely reassuring.
Absolutely. We love to see it.
Yeah,
Please.
I'll get there one day.
I am classified as medically frail.
Oh my god, imagine if I broke your fucking wrist.
I could imagine on camera. Like, Miss Snowden, please don't watch the last 5 seconds. It's my wrist being stabbed. Okay, that is the end of this lesson. Bye, Miss Snowden.
Bye. It's Dean. Hi.